It's another very wonderful Friday afternoon on independent television and radio here in Benin City. My name is Kingsley Okoje and the program is Hitches and Voices. Hitches and Voices is coming to you courtesy of Network for the Advancement of People with Visible Disability, NAPVID. Today on the program, I'm not working alone like a football club. I'm joined in the studio with by a very wonderful person, my co-anchor for today, Barbara Obi. Barbara, welcome to today's edition of Hitches and Voices.
Thank you.
And our sign language interpreter for today is Mrs. Cynthia Aya. She's going to be doing justice to our deaf community, ensuring that they are part of today's conversation. And we will be bringing you a very interesting subject. And to do justice to that discourse today is the immediate past president of the Congress of Non-Governmental Organizations here in Edo State, Mrs. Abiola Igaga. Welcome to Hitches and Voices.
Thank you so much for having me, Kingsley, and good afternoon, viewers.
All right, today it's a very wonderful edition because the subject is going to be something I'm sure a lot of persons with disability will be interested in, and persons without disability alike. We'll be talking about reasonable accommodation, rights and responsibility for persons with disability. And I know you'll be wondering, what is reasonable accommodation? It's a term commonly used in the disability community. So our guest on the program today will be dissecting the subject of reasonable accommodation. And I think it is best to start by asking, what exactly is reasonable accommodation?
Well, thank you so much. What is reasonable accommodation? Could be accommodation where the person lives and could be accommodation where the person works. So in this term, we're looking at where the individual, the person with disability, works. Thank you.
Okay, you just made mention that making adjustment, it could be administrative, procedural, or environmental adjustment for persons with disability, either in the workspace or in a school environment. I'm sure that's the point you're trying to make.
Exactly, thank you.
All right.
Okay, I'm actually curious. I would like to know, are there any provisions for reasonable accommodation in the Edo State Disability Law?
Yes, under the commission, it says for you to, every person with disability has an equal right like any other person to get access to the workplace. So in other words, the commission makes sure that there is assistive devices for persons with disability. Then you have things like the ramp for those on wheelchair to make it accessible for them. Then the doors, ensure that the doors are wide enough, you know, and then you have things for those who are virtually impaired. That's talking about the braille. And then an interpreter in the workplace where it is so easy for persons with disability to be able to work in a conducive environment.
All right, that's fantastic. You know, as we are discussing this subject now, a lot of persons with disability who are watching or listening will be asking themselves certain questions that when it comes to reasonable accommodation, who determines how reasonable such accommodation could be? I mean, if an employer employs somebody with a disability, for instance, or someone who didn't have any disability whatsoever, then in the course of job or in the course of life, the person acquires one disability or the other. So who at that point determines what is reasonable accommodation? Is it the employer or the person with disability? Or when employing person with disability, who determines what's reasonable accommodation?
It should be that the employer, because you have invited this individual to work with you. So you make it conducive all round for the person with disability. Then the commission also have their own role to play in ensuring that persons with disability, wherever they are working, it is very, very conducive. Like I did mention, the door for those who use the wheelchair, and then the ramp for those also who use the wheelchair. Then those on crutches, ensure that they also have accessibility into that building. Then what about the toilets? Also accessible. There are some hotels you go to now. It is mandatory that most of these hotels have the iron bars where persons with disability can hold and, you know, use as convenient. But most of them don't have. Then the lifts. if they're in high buildings, there should be a lift for persons with disability to have access to be able to get to their offices.
Yeah, so because I'm looking at cost, reasonable accommodation cost. Some employers might shy away from employing persons with disability on the grounds that it is expensive. I mean, you are telling me that for me to employ a person with disability, I have to go and create a ramp, I will have to make the toilet a bit more spacious and accessible for someone on a wheelchair. If it's a blind person, I have to provide assistive technology for that person. Is reasonable accommodation, is it that expensive, or is just making little adjustments for the person with disability?
Well, they go together. Let me use myself for example. I employ somebody with a person with disability. I should make provisions for that individual. Then the commission have their own role to play to ensuring that before the building or the build, these are put into cognizance. The ramp, the door, and any other, just to make it conducive. Yesterday I was in my office, and a boy who comes around to help me do 1 or 2 jobs, he just walked up to me and said, "Madam, this thing you did there, is it that the roof has been leaking?" I said, "No." He said, "Then why did I do it?" I said, "I did it for my friends who are on wheelchair." He was taken aback. He said, "For those on wheelchair?" I said, "Yes. You see this staircase, you and I can climb it." He said, "Yes." "Can those on wheelchair climb it?" He said, "No." In that small space, I had educated the person, the man. What am I trying to say? You are talking about expenses. If you truly have these persons in mind, remember that they have equal rights, just like any able-bodied person. You go out of your way and make the workspace conducive for them. So, talking about whether it is what we use the word now, the expenses comes in. If you are enlightened enough and you know you require their skill in your organization, then you make that adjustment.
Yeah, and this adjustment you were talking about, it's not like it's a big deal sometimes. Like if you have an accountant in your office who, for any reason, had an accident and the person is now using a wheelchair, basically what you need to do is to make the entrance to the office a bit more accessible for wheelchair, make the toilet a bit more spacious for him. This thing might not require so much. It might not break the budget of that establishment. It's just making little adjustment, I guess.
Little, just little. But for the convenience of the person with disability.
All right.
Okay, so from your perspective, what would you say are some of the reasons why persons with disabilities are denied reasonable accommodation?
Well, for me, it's enlightenment. If they're enlightened to know that these persons with disability have equal rights like any able-bodied person, they should be employed. They should be accepted. It's there, it's stated in the law, stated clearly. So it takes us back to the commission. They have a whole lot of work to do. Enlightenment, going from church to church, mosque, to enlighten the citizens to know that our brothers and sisters who are persons with disability have equal rights like any other able persons. So enlightenment, they need to know.
Okay, speaking on enlightenment, do you think that this awareness creation is only a duty of the Disability Commission, or do you think that is something that also applies to individuals as well?
It applies to every individual, starting with myself. Every individual. The pastor should understand that when you are preaching, there should be a sign writer in the church there. You should not discriminate in the choir why you cannot have a person with disability being a member of the choir, even as a pastor. So it cuts across everyone. If we have this understanding, it makes life easy for the persons who are with disability. They are not discriminated.
Well, employment should not be on the basis of your disability, but rather on the basis of merit.
Exactly.
All right. Okay, so that we can further, demonstrate what reasonable accommodation is in a workspace or in any institution of learning, we had an interview with a worker in the Edo State Civil Service. He is visually impaired, just to help you understand how reasonable accommodation can help persons with disability work effectively in a workspace. Let's go to that interview and we'll be right back.
Good afternoon.
Please tell us about yourself.
Okay, my name is Wisdom Omoyegi Ege Esquire. I am an Assistant Chief State Counsel with the Edo State Ministry of Justice here in Benin, and I'm in Citizens' Rights Department. For the record, I'm a visually impaired person, but a lawyer.
So today we'll be asking you questions concerning reasonable accommodation. Can you share your experience requesting reasonable accommodations in your workplace?
When I got this job, working was not that very easy. It was not so accessible because materials was not available. But this was drawn to the attention of the state government, who graciously made provision for some of this technology which has aided my work. The state government provided assistive device for us to be able to do our work just as every other person is working.
Okay, could you tell us more about this assistive device, like specific devices that you were equipped with?
Okay, one of such is, of course, computer is not new to anybody, but as a visually impaired person, we will not be able to use a computer if there is no special device, like a software, special software that will enable us to use the computer. Like the computer that was provided for me by the state government, this is the computer, this is a laptop, this is what I use in doing my work. But there's a screen reader that screen reader is a special software that enables me to interact with the computer. I'm very familiar with the keyboard, I'm very familiar with everything that is in this system, but I will not be able to use it if the screen reader is absent. That is made possible because of the screen reader that was procured and installed on the system. Then we talk about note taker. Okay, this is a note taker. This note taker, what it does is that it is either you call it note taker or you call it refreshable braille display. It has a memory card. This is the memory card. So once I put it on, I can type with it. As I'm typing with it, it comes out in braille. Braille is a system that is designed that enables visually impaired persons to be able to read with their fingers. So if I put this note taker on, I can use it to take note, maybe as we're in the meeting, as every other person is taking note, and save it in. As I save it, it goes into this memory card. So also, I can take any document and copy it into this memory card and put it here. I can connect this note taker using the Bluetooth, connect it to this laptop. Whatever thing that is coming out from this laptop will be coming out in braille here. I will be using my finger to read, just as every other person is reading with their eyes. Then there's another one, which is Evo E10. This Evo E10 is a recorder too. It's a special recorder.
Can you show that to us?
This is it. Okay. If I put it on, I can use this to record whatever thing that I want to, special recorder.
What advice do you have for employers who are seeking to create an inclusive environment for persons with disabilities?
My advice and appeal is that when you want to employ persons with disability, if you see the person's competence, it is not just for you to employ that person. Make the environment conducive for that person, not just in terms of building, equally, ensure that what the person needs, like the special tools the person needs to carry out his assignment to the fullest capacity. It's more of an advocacy and appeal, so that you'll be able to reap the benefits, and the person too will be able to contribute his own quota to that organization or company.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Back from that very brief interview with Barrister Wisdom Ege, a principal state counsel with the Edo State Ministry of Justice, demonstrating how reasonable accommodation has assisted him to do his work effectively. You're still on to HITCHES and Voices on Independent Television and Radio. Don't forget that this segment of the program is brought to you by the Joint National Association of Persons with Disability, JONAPID. We are still creating enlightenment on the Edo State disability law. And with us in the studio today is the immediate past president of the Congress of Non-Governmental Organizations, Congos in Edo State, Mrs. Abiola Igaga. You just watched that interview, yes. And I can tell you those assistive technology, they don't come cheap.
Yes.
They are very, very expensive. They are it comes in terms of millions. And so when you are talking to an employer to provide some of this assistive device, do you demand it as a right, or it's something we have to appeal to employers to do based on showing empathy and understanding?
Well, going by the law, is the right of the person with disability. But if the one who was employed does not understand, we have to appeal to the conscience. And if he's so desiring to be in his organization, then he has to go out of his way to get it. Knowing, of course, that you may not only be the one that will work with him, but talking about future. Does he desire more persons with disability to work with him, or is just a one-off thing? Maybe he has a project, and the project requires that a person with disability be a part of the team. That's a one-off thing. Or he doesn't genuinely want these persons to be on board with him. So these are things we consider. So if you are talking about rights, the commission, the law says that it's the right of the persons with disability to have these assistive devices in the workplace. But
I think the employer also deserves the right to determine what the cost for him, for that company would be.
Of course.
If I'm employing someone with a disability, and the cost of employing that person is way beyond my budget, as one who owns that company, I deserve the right to say I cannot afford the services of this person. But I think what is important is that reasonable accommodation is not as expensive as people would think. I had a friend who was employed in a company. Before his employment, the employers doubted his competence. They were asking, okay, you are visually impaired, we want to employ you, and it's customer care, and you have to be dealing with the computer. How are you going to use the computer? He was almost denied that opportunity on the basis of the fact that they felt he cannot use the computer. But he pleaded and told them that there is a software. All they need to do is to just add that software to the system, and that will enable him navigate his way through the computer. And they did, and today he's working in that company, and is one of the outstanding staff in that company. Okay. So you see that reasonable accommodation is just making reasonable adjustments for persons with disability to enable them work. And it's not just in workspaces, even in schools. We have situations where most institutions of learning don't have reasonable accommodation. So people cannot access some of these buildings for classes. So when we talk about reasonable accommodation, does it just end in the workplace?
It doesn't work in the workplace. It doesn't. I recall we had a program in GRA, one of the hotels. As I got there, in my usual way, I just asked the receptionist, I said, do you have a lift? He said, no. I said, why? She said, does it matter? I said, yes. If our brothers are persons with disability, if we have a meeting here and they are to come, what will they assess? Then she from her desk, she looked and said, but you're not a person with disability. I said, no, I don't have to be. That's why I'm talking now. But I knew I was wasting my time because she is not the owner of the hotel. So what we need to do through the commission is to visit hotels, engineers, have meetings with engineers, those who are in charge of building, designing, whatever, have programs with them, town hall meetings, so that we can enlighten them. So when they are building, they are drawing out their plans, they should have this at the back of their mind to put in these places to make it conducive for persons with disabilities.
Well, speaking of buildings, I recall that the Prohibition Against Persons with Disability Act, the national law, have a transitory period of 5 years whereby all buildings are supposed to be made accessible for persons with disabilities. But I do not think that is the reality at this moment, because that law was made as far back as 2018, 2019. So we've actually exceeded the 5 years transitory period, and there's still a lot of buildings in Nigeria that are not accessible. So what do you think can be done about this? Does it mean that the government is not doing much to implement this law, or do we need individuals to start speaking up on the implications of this?
Now, you agree with me that when it was passed in Edo State, the commission was not set up.
Yes.
It is with this new government that the commission was set up. They just brought in the commissioner, so let's give them some time to see what they would do. And that is where NAVID and JONAPID come in play. They should pay courtesy visits to the commissioner of the commission and let him know that work needs to start. Just like you said, the 5 years has already gone. So what are we doing? So there's a lot of work to be done. A lot of work to be done. Going to churches, going to mosque, going to public places to enlighten them. All town hall meeting. It doesn't cost much. Partner with Ojon Weres, partner with whoever is in charge, and let these persons come and enlighten them. That brief stint I had with that bricklayer, and I told him about the ramp I did in my office. I tell you, he will also go and share with others. As they pass my road daily, maybe others will say, what did Madam do there? He will say, now what he do it because of persons with disability. And before you know it, they start sharing this information. So we need to enlighten the public. Thank you.
All right, speaking in terms of, employment for persons with disability, when employers are interviewing persons with disability, do you think emphasis should be on the person's disability? Because sometimes when you walk into a panel where you are to be interviewed as someone with disability, they tend to forget about what brought you there, and the focus is now on your disability. Do you think it's a right approach in terms of interviewing someone with disability for a job?
Well, if for such interviewers, they should listen to the individual, and they know whether he's capable of being employed or not. It is the skill you're after. If you are already looking at the physical attributes, you're already discriminating. Just like you shared with us your friend, who they gave the chance, and he told them that please, you can. There's a device you can attach to my computer, and they did. And today is working with them. So it is not. You need the skill of the individual. Go for that, and not the physical attribute. But if you think that it's going to be you do not want, then it is in your hands to know whether you will employ that individual or not.
Fantastic. It's been very interesting on the program today. Our conversation has been on reasonable accommodation for persons with disability. And by reasonable accommodation, we mean making administrative, environmental, and procedural adjustment for persons with disability, either in a workplace or in an institution of learning, just to make our environment, just to make our society more inclusive for persons with disability. Don't forget, HITCHES and Voices came to you courtesy of Network for the Advancement of People with Visible Disability, NAVID. You can follow us on our various social media platforms, www.facebook.com/NAVID Nigeria. Instagram and Twitter is @NAVID Nigeria. Mrs. Abiola,
Thank you.
Gaga, thanks for coming on HITCHES and Voices.
Thank you for having me.
Barbara, And big thanks to our sign language interpreter. Barbara, when are you learning the sign language?
Soon.
And I will encourage our listeners to take classes in sign language interpretation. Bye and God bless you. My name is Kingsley Okoje.